Hi, it's Edward W. Cotney. This is a chapter review from my first book, Tax Secrets Made Simple. I specialize in working with high net worth families who are ready to pay less tax for the rest of their lives. I wrote this book to help business owners and individuals begin their journey to pay less tax. Let's jump into the next chapter. Hello, and welcome to Chapter 17 from my book, Tax Secrets Made Simple. Today I want to talk about a hot asset. We call this asset a hot asset because it is forever subject to income tax and in some cases subject to death tax. Sometimes people get so confused on handling their traditional IRAs and 401ks, they simply just shut down. They'll make statements like, I don't care how this thing is taxed, it's not going to be my problem, etc. The reality is this is a problem that we need to give some serious consideration to, because we can do some great things with this IRA 401k while you're alive and even after you're gone. So chapter 17 of my book is called the Give It Away Twice Trust. Again, specifically traditional IRA 401k or qualified assets is what we typically call this. One of the things that's important about understanding the IRA 401k scenario, when we look at people in the demographics, 90% of the people who live to be age 90 also still have about 90% of their IRAs and 401ks still intact. Now, the reason for that is because at some point the IRS mandates that you have to start taking required minimal distributions out of your qualified plan. Currently in the year 2023, that age is 73. So at age 73, if I only take out the minimal required distribution, and it's small, and if I keep taking out only the required minimal distributions, assuming my financial planner is at least average, technically, we will not touch a single penny of my balance, my principal, my whatever you want to call it, until I get to be about 84 to 87 years of age. If all I'm doing is taking out the required minimal distribution and my financial planner is at least average in their rate of return on the investments. So 90% of the people who make it to age 90 who only take out their required minimal distributions will typically at age 90 still have 90% of their IRA 401k intact, which means when you die and that qualified plan goes to your children, it is still ordinary income tax to them for the next 10 years. So I want to bring a case study to the table for Tim and Susan Miller. They want to transfer their wealth to their heirs. They would like for them to get as much tax-free money as possible. They would also like for the money to go to them with preferably some degree of asset protection, free from lawsuits. And also we want to watch out for predators and creditors. Here's Susan. She's age 80 and her husband Tim died in 2017. She has 4 children. She has a home worth $400,000 that's paid off. She has about another $400,000 in cash and other investments. And her husband's IRA rolled over to her as an $800,000 IRA. At age 80, she has taken required minimal distributions. She has 4 children. Mike is a successful doctor. He's making good money. His net worth is $25 million. He's in a good marriage. Their daughter Mary, well, maybe not the best marriage. Her husband at the funeral of Tim was heard stating, I can't wait for mom-in-law to die so I can get a new truck and bass boat. Ed, well, I used my photograph for this one, but I'm in a good marriage. But for the sake of this discussion, child number 3 is in a rocky marriage, but good with money. And then, of course, many families have a Dan. Can't manage money, currently divorced again, looking for work always, and pretty much is always looking to mom and the siblings for a handout because he's always financially strained. So let's focus on the tax issues for Susan at her death. The house gets a step up in basis, no tax bill. The cash and personally owned stock, step up in basis, no tax bill if they sell all this the next day. But the IRA, the $800,000 qualified plan, is ordinary income to the 4 kids. So if mom and dad have an equal distribution scheme, which is typically what I see most of the time, basically we have a scenario where everybody gets 1/4 of everything. The IRAs, the house, and the money. For the IRA 401k, there are some technical issues here because the IRAs and 401ks, basically the IRAs, have to be distributed out over the next 10 years. So if mom died today, that entire IRA shall be distributed out to the children, all the money out within 10 years. And there is an RMD requirement now that the 2022 Secure Act 2 rules have been put into place, we know that for certain, RMDs are required for the beneficiaries. Everything's distributed as a 1099-R as ordinary income to the kids. So her estate plan, including the $800,000 IRA, along with the house and the securities, is roughly 1.6. The model we suggested she consider was to let the house and the cash, the assets that step up with basis, what we call the good assets that have no tax exposure, those can be distributed according to whatever design scheme they have in their revocable living trust. Outright, over time, whatever. No tax. The IRA, we recommended she put that into what's called a charitable remainder unit trust for a term of years. This is called a term certain charitable trust. So basically, the designated beneficiary form for the IRA would be changed to say, upon the death of mom, this IRA will go to this charitable remainder trust named the Susan Miller Charitable Remainder Trust with an EIN number. An attorney would set this up in advance while she's alive today, and it's basically a dry trust or an unfunded trust that's just sitting there waiting to be funded. The funding mechanism, again, is going to be the designated beneficiary form for the IRA account. When mom passes away, the IRA custodian transfers the monies to the appropriate account, and now the money has just moved tax-free from the IRA custodian to the to the charitable remainder trust. Since this is a term of years charitable remainder trust, it's a term of years for 20, maximum allowed by law, and this charitable trust will pay out to the children 5.3% a year for the next 20 years, which means $42,400 will be divided among the 4 children equally, which is about $11,000 and change per kid for the next 20 years. And when you think about the 4 kids, getting an extra $11,000 added to their income is probably not going to bump them into a higher tax rate or tax bracket. So we have a degree of tax optimization here versus them taking it out all at once over 2 or 3 years or even up to 10 years. So we have optimized the tax outcome to help the kids get beneficial. At the end of the charitable trust, assuming just a modest return on investment here, this charitable trust should have about $898,000 in it that's going to go to one or more charities after the trust has done its job. So in effect, we started out with $800,000 of highly taxable assets, gave the kids an income stream of $896,000 with increased tax efficiency and a degree of asset protection, and at the end of 20 years, charity gets nearly $900,000. Without question, we just gave this hot, terrible asset to own at death away twice with great tax efficiency, asset protection, and a beautiful gift for charity. Yeah, the IRS still got a couple of dollars, but nowhere near the dollars that we're going to get with the existing plan. So the charitable trust does provide a degree of asset protection because the kids can't reach into the bucket and take out what they want. It's outside of everyone's taxable estate for their personal estate taxes. The CRUT pays an income stream for 20 years with less income tax exposure. Charity gets a big, fat, substantial gift. The IRS gets a little less, and frankly, we're going to see probably a strong 30% or more tax benefit for the kids. Susan has peace of mind knowing that her children will remember her and Tim with each distribution. Now let's think about that for a minute. When Susan passes away, the estate is liquidated. The money is distributed to the children to use as they please. Here we have an income stream that's going to make a deposit electronically into their bank accounts quarterly for the next 20 years. So even from the grave, she's going to be able to provide them a degree of a security blanket in case one of the kids has difficulty. She's going to be able to help make certain the kids have a reliance on an income stream that can help them. She's going to have the ability to understand that even though her and Tim aren't there, every time they get a deposit, they're probably going to remember mom and dad versus no deposits for the next 20 years. Not that I'm trying to say this is a way to make certain the kids come visit your gravesite, but it is something kind of cool to think about. Susan's also pleased that her IRA will transfer with a degree of asset protection. Many advisors and almost all consumers did not realize that in 2014, the Supreme Court passed a ruling on Clark v. Ramaker, which basically says inherited IRAs can be subject to bankruptcy judgments. Can be subject to bankruptcy judgments. So what that means is Mike is a doctor. Well, we know doctors have a hard time with lawsuits. Mary, She's married to somebody who technically is going to probably try to take advantage of her. So this is a way to make certain that her husband, who wants a bass boat and a truck, again, nothing wrong with bass boats because I love them, but she now has an income stream going to her for the next 20 years that her husband can't touch. Unfortunately for Ed, his wife's filing for divorce today. Luckily, this is a strategy that's going to help isolate that issue and give him a benefit. And for Dan, who's probably the one who needs the most training wheels and handcuffs, and I hate to say it that way, but when we have a child like Dan who doesn't understand how to handle money, taxes, etc., this is a way for mom to give him an income stream from the grave to make him less reliant on his surviving siblings. So it has a lot of benefits all the way around. And so for Mrs. Miller, she still has full control and use of her IRA 401k while she's alive. Remember, none of this goes into effect until after she passes away. She can change the beneficiary form at any time. So let's say that next week she decides she doesn't like this strategy. She just goes back to change the IRA beneficiary form to be all outright to the kids equally and just let the chips fall where they may, tax bill and creditor protection issues, all. Overwhelmingly, if they truly understand the value of what this strategy is doing for them, they won't be changing the beneficiary form. She can sleep comfortably at night knowing there's a safety net for all the kids. She literally cried when we showed her the amount of money that the charity was going to get by using this strategy. She and Tim had never thought that they could ever make a gift this large to a charity in their life. And here we are giving a charity nearly $900,000 using a hot taxable asset to solve a death tax problem. And she kept saying in her tears how proud Tim would be to know that this was happening and that she was going to make something great happen. Let's just use $1 million to kind of show the difference between an outright distribution to just one child. If mom and dad die with $1 million IRA with one child, and that child takes all the money out at once, here in the great state of California, it's going to be subject to state and federal tax, solid $450,000 and change. Total wealth take home's $550,000. The good news is he paid a $450,000 tax bill. He's got $550,000 in his name. He just needs to make certain he protects that $550,000 in case there's some type of judgment, creditor, lawsuit, etc. Under the 10-year rule, we still have the ability under the IRA, the inherited IRA, remember these are still subject to the kids' creditor issues for bankruptcy. So we could have Tim and Susan leaving this $1 million IRA to their son Joe, and then Joe gets in a lawsuit in a year. That IRA could be tapped in the judgment, and he could end up losing part or all of the IRA and get stuck with the tax bill. Not a good outcome. Using the IRA to the charitable trust model, we're probably going to have some tax. This is probably a little high, but wealth gain for the kids and the wealth gain for charity are strongly $850,000 and more. So even when you compare all of these against one another, the safer one is the IRA to the charitable trust. The one that gives the most money to the children is the IRA to the charitable trust. And the only one that ever gives $1 to charity is the IRA to the charitable trust. When we look at maximum wealth control, understanding our IRAs and 401ks as being a hot asset that truly requires its own degree of estate planning. And I want to emphasize that the issue we have here is that too many times I'll see an estate plan where it's just on all the other assets because that's what the law firms can focus on. And they will say, in respect to your IRAs and 401ks, go back to your financial planner and make certain the designated beneficiary forms are filled out. This is one of those few occasions where this is a fantastic thing to have the attorney and the financial planner working together to create a model that is superior to just having an outright distribution of the IRA to the kids. Again, this is Ed Cotney, Chapter 17 of my book, Tax Secrets Made Simple. I hope you've enjoyed it.
I hope this message from my book, Tax Secrets Made Simple, has inspired you to learn how to pay less tax and enjoy more life. In my videos, I share insights into how to utilize the most generous tax code on the planet, courtesy of the Internal Revenue Service. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel. Visit my website, olympustax.com, to buy my book or contact me. Only you can exercise your right to pay the least amount of tax due. Watch for the next video covering another topic from my book, Tax Secrets Made Simple.